Having all kinds of problems. Okay. I wanted to do something to celebrate creative women. And as uh, the founder of Spark Your Creative Coaching, I'm just really excited to have these ladies here with me today in March of 2021. It also is the day after Swan Day. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Swan Day, which is focused on celebrating artists, women artists. So this is part of that, and Women's History Month and all that. So we weren't able to do the live due to technical difficulties, but we pivot as we do as creative women. And so I'm very excited to have you all here today to be a part of this presentation. And so I wanted to start off by reading a quote that I thought was very appropriate for the women that we have here today. It's by a woman named Lucy Pierce. The deep feminine, the mystery of consciousness, she is who is life, is longing for our transformation as much as we are. She holds back, allowing us free rein to choose, nudging us occasionally with synchronicities, illness, births, and death. But when we make space for her, she rushes into all the gaps, engulfing us with her desire for life and expression. This is what she longs for. This is what we are experiencing, the feminine, through ourselves. We simply need to slow down and find where to put our conscious attention. And it is this willingness to look again, this willingness to put consciousness onto our places of unconsciousness, to express what we have always avoided, which starts the process of unblocking so that she may flow through. So, yes. So with that as our backdrop today, we're going to be talking to three women that are also my friends. And there's a part of me in every one of these ladies, which is really interesting. And that's why I was so excited to assemble this group. I'm going to introduce them by alphabetical order, by last name. And the first guest is Mina Habibi. And if you could wave to the audience. She is a photographer and recently CEO of another creative endeavor with Mina Habibi Portrait Artist and 10th House Creative, which I'm very excited for her. She launched that this year. She is the creatrix behind Mina Habibi Portrait Artist and creates dynamic and genuine branding photography for her heart-centered businesses and entrepreneurial empaths. She uses her intuitive wisdom to create portraits capturing the magic of, as well as empowering and elevating women business owners so they can play big and shine bright. Mina also owns 10th House Creative, a branding design firm that she launched this year in 2021, and is an artist, yogini, and yoga instructor, and a flower junkie. She finds truth in nature and believes that magic resides in everything. So I want to thank Mina for being on this presentation today. And she actually does did all of the photography as part of my branding for Spark Your Creative. So when you see that on Facebook and Instagram, she's the one that's responsible. So my next guest is Kaniki Jakarta. She's the first African-American poet laureate of Alexandria, Virginia. She is an award-winning poet who has toured the US and the UK. She's the author of 3 novels, 2 poetry collections, a memoir, a short story, poetry, and a poetry collection entitled Alabama Girl, also Virginia Woman, and the co-author of The Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing, Volume 2. She's been interviewed and featured in newspapers, magazines, podcasts, radio stations, TV stations in the greater Washington, D.C. area. She hosts Kaniki Harmony on the first Mondays, open mic night at Busboys and Poets in Shirlington, in the Alexandria, Virginia area. She facilitates a quarterly workshop entitled Write Like a Woman in Alexandria, Virginia, a virtual monthly workshop entitled Prep to Publish. And she presents poets and platforms under the umbrella of a weekly online woman-led artistic experience entitled Keep the Mic On, where she is the co-founder. So welcome, Kaniki. I met Kaniki during my own poetry endeavors in the last couple of years, and have been a participant of her open mic as well as her workshops. And so very, very happy to have her with me. And last, but certainly not least, is Melanie Rivers. She's a fine artist of Melanie Rivers Art, all the way from Canada, Canada. She is from the Squamish First Nation in Vancouver, Canada. She draws her traditional ancestry and teachings in her art practice. Her art depicts the strength, realness, and vulnerability of women. She believes that we are all creative in some way, and she's passionate about facilitating opportunities for women to engage with creativity. She is an experienced teacher and trained in expressive arts. So welcome, Melanie. So one of the things that I thought I would start out with, and we can kind of round robin this, is the question of, I'm always interested in how people end up moving into creative endeavors that they do, and everybody has a unique story. Some people do, formal art school or writing, MFA in writing or whatever, and some people fall into creativity and their art practice. I know for myself, I'm an artist and a poet, and it's weird to say that now because it's like, really, I didn't go through all the, but and I never went through formal art school outside of high school or, writing and all that. It's all been very intuitive and a part of who I am as a divine feminine. So wanted to know a little bit about how'd you get involved with your creative practice? Were there any key things that led you on your journey? And I think I'm going to start with Mina.
Okay. First, Sharon, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I'm very excited and honored to be here with these other amazing women and yourself. So I actually went back to college in my 30s as an adult to get a bachelor's in fine arts. And the idea was to do that in art education and become a teacher. Until I realized that teaching wasn't going to be the thing for me. And then I switched to graphic design. But as part of that, in a fine arts degree, you kind of have to touch on everything. And while I had long been an artist and dabbled in this and that, getting to play with all these different mediums and in different ways was it introduced me to a lot of different ways to create art. Then at the same time, I was introduced to Eastern religions, which completely opened my mind to a lot of different things, as well as yoga and goddess and goddess archetypes. And so all of this stuff was happening at the same time. And I also spent an entire semester studying Judy Chicago, and as related to some projects that I was doing based off of Georgia O'Keeffe's work. And so if you've never heard of Judy Chicago, her big thing was the dinner party, and much of her work was related to feminine energy and empowerment. And so just the combination of all of those things was the rocket that launched me into spending a lot of time working in different mediums focused on feminine energy and how that plays with maybe masculine energy or just in general, and then empowering women. And then it just kind of evolved over time with a different medium becoming photography. And I think one of your later questions gets a little bit more in depth to that, but that's where it started, was in college. And as an adult, going back to school was huge because I had a much greater appreciation for getting an education and opening up to all of those different things that were available.
Okay. It's very interesting, and I've known you for some time, and some of that I didn't know.
Mhm.
So it's kind of cool to hear that. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Kaniki? How did you get involved with this whole spoken word thing, and what led you down this path?
My story goes way back farther than hers. Hers. When my mother was pregnant with me, she read a lot of Nikki Giovanni poetry. She fell in love with Nikki Giovanni back in the 70s. And she decided when she had a daughter, she wanted to name her Nikki Giovanni. But at the last minute, she said, wait, she probably needs her own name. So she named me Nikki instead. So that's what my name.
I didn't know that. I've known you for a while. I didn't know that. Okay.
So my dad was a big Dr. Seuss fan. In fact, I always tell the story about how I thought my dad was Dr. Seuss. He quoted a lot of Dr. Seuss. His name middle name was Samuel. Everybody called him Sam. And he would walk around the house like, I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like him, Sam, I am. Right. So I remember one Christmas I got the green eggs and ham book. Mm-hmm. And in my little mind, I was thinking, my dad is Dr. Seuss. I didn't know, I didn't think to ask. So it goes back to that. And he's also a big Maya Angelou fan. So I had poetry in my house first. I went to a private Christian school in my elementary days, and we had poetry for a class. So I started there. That is where my spoken word started. We would get this gigantic book of poetry, choose poems that we wanted to learn and recite. And we would compete with our class, compete with the school, and then compete with other schools in the area. And I was winning those things back in the day. So then a best friend of mine named Brandy and I happened to choose the right poem. And we're talking about not like the typical, if you've seen spoken word, you have these judges, usually are anonymous judges, but during these judging days, they had 5 judges, they had the book, they were looking at the poem, making sure you pause when there's a comma and she and I had chosen the same poem and she won. So I said, how did she win? And my dad said, that she did the poem better than I did. So I said, well, next year I'll write my own poem. So that is where, so then it got to be, well, Kaniki Williams, my maiden name is Williams, Kaniki Williams with an original piece. And everybody was like, she wrote it herself. So this was 3rd, 4th grade. So that is how things got started. And then of course, after I went to public school, there was no poetry in class except, that one little time of year where I was taking poetry as a class. I was still writing poetry, but no outlet for poetry. So, and when I saw Love Jones, I know that sounds.
Hello, yes.
So I saw
not too long ago, by the way. So
yes. When I saw that, I said, so people stand up in front of audiences and read poems? That is what happened? Where did I do that? So I was living in Virginia Beach at the time, and one of my co-workers, they found a event. It was a Virginia House of Comedy, and they used to do comedy there, and they had an open mic. So I came, and I was real nervous, shaking, and this was in my 20s back in the day. And so that's how I got started. And then when you move to the DC area, there is poetry, a massive poetry, whereas poetry in Maryland, there's poetry in Virginia, there's poetry in DC. So I would travel around to all of those different places. So that is my start in that. I think, so I'm going to end right there. I'm going to let somebody else go, and I'll end right there because I know you have more in-depth questions.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting about the Dr. Seuss and how creativity was sort of nurtured in your home, from day one. Or really before you were born, Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, thank you. And Melanie?
So painting has become a complete surprise to me. It's something I did not think at all I would be doing. When I was younger, I was a dancer, and that I was painfully shy as a child. and as a teenager and a young adult. And so that was a way I could express myself without words. And I find painting is another way to do that. I can, it's a form of expression, a way to share story without words. Although I've learned how to speak over the years, but it has definitely been a journey. And so about 9 years ago, I was seeking something that would help me relax, something that would help me get into the present moment, out of my anxieties where I'm worrying about the future, thinking about the past, just like this present moment. And I'm able to find that in some other ways, like meditation, yoga, but the art is the only thing that really absorbs me that way into the present moment, where I forget about time. And so my husband's an artist, and he'd been saying for many years, you should have a hobby, something that will relax you. And and then I didn't listen to him for many years. And he likes this story because he ends up being right. So I found this doodle, a 30-day doodle challenge. And I was like, no, it's 30 days, 5 minutes a day. I can handle that. And it doesn't require any skill. And so I joined it. And right from maybe the second or third doodle I did, I just had this profound experience with the expression of just creation, basically. And then I was like, I want more of that. But I felt like I didn't have the vocabulary or the skill, because I could draw stick people. That was my skill level. And so I then had this desire to want to express this way, but didn't have the skill. So I started seeking out teachers to learn from, and teachers that focused on process over product. So because I was looking for that, what I call the medicine of art, and not necessarily to build a skill, although the skill was sort of came along the way. So I sought out teachers and just started basically from the first acrylic painting workshop I went straight to the art store, bought a bunch of tubes of paint and paintbrushes, and went to IKEA, set up a little art desk in the living room, and just from there, pretty much every day have engaged in art in some way. And now it's just a huge passion of mine. And I also love to teach. So now engaging women in creativity is just the ultimate for me. And I studied expressive arts therapy a couple of years ago, and that's where I really discovered my joy for writing. And so I say poetry because I'm still scared to say poetry, because it feels like I'm not skilled enough. But I love bringing story out. I feel like when I create a painting, the story comes through, and it's sometimes my story, sometimes someone else's story, but I'm following the story. And so I'll create the painting, and then I'll capture it in a short poem or story. So bringing those two creative pieces together is just the ultimate for me.
I appreciate you sharing that, because, I have a love for both poetry and art. And I actually met Melanie through this pandemic, of just following her on Instagram. And I've become a collector of her work, and this is one of her original pieces. And I thought I would share that with everybody, because she is phenomenal. And as an artist and an art collector and everything, I have a keen eye for good work, and I really appreciate Melanie's work. A lot of her work is focused on women, I guess mostly all of it, right? Yeah. Portraits and that sort of thing. Yeah. And so I think that her work always speaks to me positively. And so I think that your husband was right. He did it. Okay. So you talk a little bit about your journey. What led you all to focus on women as part of your creative practice? You were led to do the things that you do, but then, somewhere along the way, you decided to focus on women, to share your talent and encourage people. And I'm going to start with Kaniki, because one of the things that I've really admired about when I started doing the poetry thing was I could feel her passion and her excitement to work with women, and it wasn't just, I'm just, doing this as a hustle or whatever. It was very much, I want you to believe in yourself. And, she has these little Kaniki isms maybe, or she has these quotes and these, positive things. And it just, I said, this is beyond just, doing something, So how did Write Like a Woman come about?
Well, the term "write like a woman" came from, well, of course now I'm a woman, so I write like a woman, not like a girl. But the term came from when I was young. You know how you would get teased about, you throw like a girl, whatever, like the girl term was a bad thing, right? So I was like, well, what if that was a good thing? But I can't do right. And then, and I'm actually thinking about doing a Write Like a Girl too, but I would need a younger person to co-host this with me. But that's where the term came from. Like, and I thought one year in, I think it was 15 of 2015, I said it would be good because in April is National Poetry Month. So we do this thing called 30-30. So yeah, jump on, your poetry, jump on that poetry.
I'm thinking about it. All right, I'm gonna look for that. And I will do
30-30. You'll see a lot of poets do it. They do it, it's internationally. It is, you write 30 poems in 30 days. So you'll see people putting, hashtag 30 for 30, National Poetry, or NAPO, 2021 or whatever. So I thought it would be good to have a month in March, because it's Women's Month, to write for and about and to women. So I wanted to take the concept of poetry and make it for Women's Month. So that's how all of that was coming about. So then I created a online platform. But the reason I did it is because when I came to DC and I was going to all of the women's writers workshops that they had in DC, they were all based for lesbian women. So I would everything that I went to was for lesbian women. So I would be there, very, welcoming, but I was always the only straight person there, right? So I said, well, where are the places where there are, Black women, white women, all races, nationality, straight, gay, all of these people, where it's just for women and all the women can come. So I said, they don't have it, so I have to create it. And that's exactly what I wanted. I said, let me get women. I always say from ages 18 through 100, because, you got the younger women, the older women, and we learn so much from each other. So, and it's so great because that's exactly when I wrote down my vision, what I wanted to happen. I wanted it to be for all women. And I just felt like, different races of women, we can learn from each other about, we have that one commonality is that we're women. That's it, right? And we're women writers. That's it. So that is the reason why I wanted to create it. And I did it online at first. And then my assistant, Keisha, was like, we should do this in person. And I said, nobody's going to want to come to do it in person. So she called Barnes and Nobles, that's not too far from me in Virginia, and she told them about me. She sent them my press kit and said, well, I set up a meeting for you. So you go talk to them.
That's a good assistant.
Set it up. So I went for the meeting, and then I did it there for a year, and then they wanted to phase out doing, personal events, not stuff that was like related to the store. So I won a contest called Dashing Words for Alexandria, where you write and then your poem, if you win, your poem is on the buses and the trolleys. So I went to the Athenaeum to present doing the program. And when it was over, one of the lady directors said, hey, I see you have books. And she looked me up and she was impressed with my performance, because everybody else kind of like read their poem and I was all rah, reading, performing. So she said, would you like to do like, a one woman show, or would you like to do a reading or whatever? And I was like, yes, I would like to do it all of it. So I wrote a proposal to them and asked about doing the Write Like a Woman workshop there. And I met with a man there and he said, we'll see. Why is it just for women? I said, well, write like a woman. So, and luckily I saved all the promo, and I had, photos from where we had done it the year before. And he said, well, we'll do it 2 times and see how it goes. So that was 16. Here we are, 2021, and we're back in person in May. So that is yep, and that is how we got started. And they asked us back every year. So I'm very, very grateful for the Athenaeum for giving us a home. And I find that it's more because we were in an open space in Barnes and Nobles, although, we were talking quietly amongst ourselves. But in the Athenaeum, we have our own one little, space, and everybody's very open. Somebody cries every time, it's very emotional. And I know it's this lady there, one of the elders, she's in her 80s, and she says, this is the one thing I have for myself where I get out and I learn so much. And she said, I thought when I came and I saw, when I first came and I saw the younger people, I was like, this may not be for me because, this, younger people. And then she saw some of the other elders, like in their 60s coming in. She said, oh, there's some older people here. She's like, what am I going to learn? But it's not just about me. It is about learning from everybody. So I am inspired, and it works because everybody's inspiring me. I say it's not about me, it is about bringing those relationships together. And I know that one of my callings is to connect people because I'm not shy. I'm going to introduce, if you need, like, if, Sharon needs a book and here's a graphic designer here, meet her, you guys should talk. So I am that person that introduces people to other people. And it's good to see people, do shows together and make friendships together. It's great. So I'm very blessed by it, very happy, and I'm going to keep it moving as long as it'll go.
And just a couple comments on that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I didn't know it started in Barnes and Noble, so that was an interesting thing. Kaniki is definitely a connector, and as well as Mina. Mina connects in a different way, but I think it's humorous because with the open night nights, she identifies the single people, and she's like, "Who's single in here?" And everybody raises their hand. All right, you can see who's in here that you can connect with. So from that perspective, but also. The workshops are phenomenal. She sells out just about every time she does it. The exercises are based, or at least the one I've attended, they're based on a very interesting question about yourself and about how you view things. And so when she
glad you noticed that.
Yes, I did.
I'm glad
and, because you come into it with this one expectation, I'm going to work on what I'm working on. But then she just like flips the script. Okay, this is what we're talking about. How do you feel about blah, blah, blah? And you're like, and you write about it and you do a lot of sharing. You get a chance to meet women. And Kaniki does a great job getting women from all age groups, that show up and backgrounds and interests. And it's definitely a very inclusive situation. So I think it's wonderful that you're offering and you continue to offer that to the greater DC community. So thank you for that. Melanie, how did you get started working with women and coming from a shy expert like myself and just started sharing your work and then bringing women into that process?
Well, I find women to be strong and resilient, and to often be the ones to seek out healing and growth, transformation. And so part of that's, part of my own internal quest for that strength. And I see that in others. And so pretty much every painting I've ever done has been about women and showing their strength and vulnerability. And so in my Squamish First culture, women are often the ones that are the ones stepping forward for healing in our communities. There's a lot of pain in our communities, and it's the women that are really stepping forward often for that healing. And for me, creating art is about a healing process. So I just absolutely love to work with women and have that connection and experience that medicine together.
It's definitely medicine. I don't think a lot of people realize creativity is medicine. And Eve, whether you're inviting people to write like you and Kaniki to be a part of the process. Or with Mina, she does a good job by bringing a certain part of yourself out so she can capture that on the lens, and thus yourself shows up as who you are as a professional or entrepreneur. um, is phenomenal. And so I think that your dedication to doing that, we're living in very tough times. This has been a tough month. March has, we've had some recent tragedy, and one that involved majority women. And, as much as we have made strides in this country, we still need outlets to let that divine feminine, show up, and safe places to do that, where we can, as Kaniki mentioned, people in tears. I don't know, Melanie, if you see that, or if people get emotional with their work, which I'm probably almost positive that they do. And even, I know with Mina, when I look at the pictures that she's done with me and my twin sister that she just did a photo shoot for, I get emotional, because she does a great job capturing the essence of who I am, and even the essence of my sister and what she's trying to do, and the women that she works with. Some of them I know, some of them I don't know, but I was attracted to her work because it's more than just this nice photo in a nice setting. There's a human being, and there's an essence, a soul, a divine feminine that's expressing herself through the smiles, through the poses. So, kudos to you and your dedication to women. I think it's, it's something I admire. Most of my clients are women. And I know that there's a lot that goes into helping people with that process of feeling comfortable and moving past messaging, internal, environmental, to express themselves. And that's sometimes the only way. Sometimes you're the only therapist, that they see or they feel comfortable seeing. And you all don't have therapy backgrounds, at least I don't think so, but you're doing it. You're doing the work of healers and doing the work of ancestral medicine. The women in their lineage and in our lineage is there to do that. So, kudos to you for doing the work. So were there women around you that influenced your path to your creative practice? And when I say that, it may not even been around you, but were there even people in popular culture, people in different ways? I know for me, Tina Turner, I do not dance anywhere like Tina Turner, and I would hope to look like her at her age and be able to live in a nice house where somebody takes care of me every day. And I get to plant flowers and all that. But the thing I like about her is her resilience. As an artist, I like Lorna Simpson. I mean, her work as if you're not familiar with her, she's a mixed media collage artist. And matter of fact, she did the cover of, what was it, Harper's Bazaar, was it, of Rihanna? And if you ever see that cover, it's just phenomenal. She just does a wonderful job. And that's just to name a few. But those women have influenced a lot of my work, and in even their messaging, their style, the way they present themselves. So I was curious, is there some women that have influenced you or served as a muse for your work? And I'll start with Melanie.
So a few, I'd say Indigenous women themselves have been makers of cedar, in my Squamish culture, cedar bark weavings for clothing or baskets, weavings. My mother's a weaver, and I've always admired that ability to make things. And then in the painting world, in the online art community, Ivy Newport, Cara Bullock, and Tamara Laporte have been big influences on me. One in their approach to how they engage people in in creating. Tamara Laporte has, this is focus on kindness. And that's something I brought into the way that I engage people in art lessons, is that we need to be kind to ourselves. We might have that inner critic that's going off in our heads, and we need to focus on some kindness to meet the medicine halfway, is what we would say in my culture. So if we can be kind to ourselves, we can meet that art medicine halfway, or that creative medicine. And then just a couple of years ago, when I did my expressive arts training, the woman that taught us, she just has this beautiful way about her, and is not fazed by people's process, their emotional journey. She can stand firm and rooted in her self, and be present for people as they process their emotional journeys. So those have been some of my big influences.
Thank you. How about you, Mina?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, Georgia O'Keeffe and Judy Chicago, two artists, one a painter, one Judy Chicago works in ceramics and painting and mixed media as well. And that was mostly from a feminine energetics standpoint. Just, not only was it a visual thing that inspired me, but just the energy behind it inspired me. And then from a photography standpoint, a few years ago, probably around the time that I started focusing on photography specifically for women, there's a duo out in California, In Her Image Photography, where we have very similar styles and languaging around goddess. And because almost all of my clients, I refer to them as a goddess, you're
Yes.
the creativity goddess, that kind of thing. And, seeing their work inspired me, and seeing how they've evolved has inspired me. And then one of my very first yoga teachers, she just touched me in a way with, again, the energetics, and yoga and creativity to me are highly integrated.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. And so, the yoga teachings that she offered opened up a whole new level of creativity for me. And then she led my teacher training, which was 20 women. And so like all of those women inspired me. And then, just kind of moving on into who I work with, my actual clients, and, each one of them in their own individual way and what they're doing and the impact they're making, whether it's, worldwide or whether it's just on another person, continues to inspire me. Every single time I see one of my clients post an image that I took, I'm like, look what she's doing out there. She's changing people's lives. And so that continues to inspire me as well. So
awesome. And it's similar to there are some women that have been around me. Matter of fact, all of you have been part of that circle. So and more. So thank you for sharing that. And Kaniki?
I'm just gonna say, y'all are gonna make me get into some yoga, because I've been saying I'm gonna do yoga for years and years. So I'm gonna let this be my confirmation. Let this be my confirmation to be into the yoga, because the whole conversation has been about yoga. But women who have inspired me, who you don't know, of course, my mother is very influential in my life, who told me, you can't sing, Kaniki, write a poem, write a song or something. Okay. My mother, my aunt, Myrtle Lee Cooley, who inspired me to always like journal. She would, I remember being at her house and not having paper, and I remember her making paper for me out of a brown paper bag, drawing lines on it with a ruler so that I can express myself. Shout out to my auntie. And all of the women of Write Like a Woman, who are very vulnerable and share their stories, and around a bunch of group of strangers, and are open to friendships and learning from people who, because I don't say that I am not even the best writer I know. So learning from me, they could be a better writer than me, but being open and being able to learn from each other. And those who you probably do know, Beyonce. And Beyonce is younger than me, but the reason why I'm inspired by her is because I remember she said she had to fire her father so that he could be her father, not her manager, but she managed herself. And she said, I sat down with myself to interview myself to say, what do you want to do with your career? So that's how she managed herself and be able to see outside of herself so she can move her career along. And of course, Nikki Giovanni is forever going to be an inspiration to me because she is my namesake. She's still alive today, a woman in her 70s who stayed relevant from in the 70s and now in her 70s.
Yes.
Relevant all of this time, and who told me to stay relevant, just stick around. So, yeah.
Very, very, very interesting. I think it's great also when we have family members that can really help and nurture us. And a lot of people I've worked with don't have that. And I think it's to be celebrated when you have parents and aunts and cousins and people that are encouraging and nurturing to your creative side. I definitely will point to my mom and my dad, but since we're talking about women, my mother for allowing kind of an atmosphere where that would actually I could thrive from that perspective. And so I do thank her that. And then I forgot to tell you that one of the women that really do influence me is Frida Kahlo. I have her t-shirt on today in honor of this. I think Frida was just so ahead of her time that they didn't know what hit them when she came through, with her combination of feminine power with the way she dressed and how she presented herself, but then this very strong, self-assured, talented woman. In the way she engaged in people, in the way that she shared her art, despite her disability, and how she is such an icon for so many women in art, so many creative women. And, I've been reading a lot about her. I facilitate a book club, and we just did a book, What Would Frida Do? And it was interesting because it was written actually by a millennial, which I thought was interesting, but it was sort of taking a look at all these different aspects of her life and what we can learn from that, and so there's so much that we can learn from creative women and how we, move forward. My last question actually is something that I think would be very helpful to a lot of people that are listening, and including your audience. I know some of you have talked about it. I know Mina and I have talked or exchanged a lot of thoughts about different things. But we're on year one of the pandemic, and a lot has happened. The people I work with, and including myself, have been affected creatively from the pandemic, the social unrest, the whole election thing. A lot has been thrown at us. And I think, I like to, I kind of liken where we are, like, we're all in PTSD, kind of like, how are we, how are we going to move forward here? The things that was in place prior to this, sometimes we feel, we're beating ourselves up, because we're home, and like, why can't you create? You've always said, oh, if I could just be at home, I'm talking to myself, if I could just be at home, and every day I take out all this stuff and do it. And, I started on a series, and, I'm just like, I have my moments. I've actually, ironically, done a little bit more writing poetry than the visual art, but it's taken me a while to find a happy medium and to be accepting of that within myself, because I felt I was failing my muse, but we're living in unprecedented times, death and just all this other stuff, but there's some blessings in this as well. So having said that, and you all just have been trucking along, I've been seeing you, and I'm like, well, how are they doing it? What are they doing? So I thought I would ask you, how have you navigated these times? How have you stayed creatively active and visible during this time? And what advice would you give creative women based on how you've navigated this, on what they may need to keep in mind? I'm going to start with Mina on this one.
Sure. So I don't know that I've navigated it that well, because I feel like I haven't um, done, like you said, the body of work I should have been doing during a supposed pandemic shutdown quarantine time where I can't do anything else, right? But the reason for that is because I got really, really busy. I mean, the blessing for me was that everybody needed to go online with their business suddenly. And so that's when I started to not transition, but realize I need to focus on graphic design and getting these entrepreneurs, mostly again, women entrepreneurs, online so that they can be visible, so that they can help heal the world. Because what most of them are doing is helping to heal the world, and the world needs what they have to offer. And so I offered myself some grace, where it's like, all right, if I'm too tired at the end of the day to hang it on the computer a little bit more and play with some collage and stuff, that's okay. Or if I'm not feeling starting an art journal, because I've had starting an art journal on my list of things to do for a year now. It hasn't happened yet, but it's going to, I swear. If I'm like, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
But lucky for me, I get to day in and day out help create a new reality for my design clients, and create a website for them, or create a logo, or create their branding. So I am able to exercise that creativity in that way. And for like anybody else out there going through the same thing, the two things I have to say are: offer yourself some grace. It's okay. And just keep at it. Don't just give up and say, well, I'm never going to do it, so I'm just never going to do it. Just keep it on your list, and when the time's right, it'll happen. And in the interim, do the things that nurture yourself. So in the last year, I have spent much more time out in the woods by myself. Every time I go out in the woods now, you guys are all the poets. Every single time I'm out in the woods, I'm like, where's the haiku out here? And I'm like, I'm haikuing to myself about the naked trees and the this and the that. And I'm like, ooh, I gotta write that down as soon as I get home. So, it came in different ways and different spurts, that I didn't realize. Okay, yeah, it's not in my art journal, but it was out there in the woods today, that creative energy and nurturing. And so do the things that nurture yourself, and it will happen.
Thank you. And I can attest, as an avid hiker, and Mina knows this, the woods will do wonders for your visual, or nature rather, for your visual and, your writing. And so I'm in the amen corner with that. And also the one thing the other thing among many things, of course, that I love about Mina is that she taught me personally about having grace for yourself and your creative self, particularly when you're disappointed in how you're showing up. And she's been kind of like a mentor to me, indirectly, of course, but she didn't know that until now. But um, she's taught me a lot about grace and taking your time to move forward creatively. And then, she busts out with this whole new thing, at the beginning. I'm like, oh my goodness, she's just like coming on strong, so I appreciate you sharing that, Mina. Melanie, how are you getting along? I know, Canada has very similar issues with, particularly with COVID and the pandemic and all that. How have you continued to make work that I buy? How do you keep it going? And, how do you share that, whatever it is, with the women that you work with?
Well, when everything first happened last year, just this sort of groundlessness feeling of everything shifting, and the grief. I talk about it like grief, the grief that many of us have experienced, are still experiencing, and the uncertainty, the unknowns. So it helped me to step into a place of service and to have a sense of purpose. So I was like, okay, I can share. I started, I wrote a little poem the first week of our lockdown here and shared that with a painting on social media. And then I was like, I'm going to hold a Facebook Live called Ground with Paint, and we'll just gather and we'll paint together. So I did weekly lives through the first part of the lockdowns last year, when kind of the whole world was in a lockdown. And that gave me a sense of purpose, and I felt very alive at that time. And the things that I created felt very alive. And then, it's been a very challenging year on top of the pandemic for my family,
Right.
and many things happening. So things are definitely a struggle. And when I find I've got something where I've got an accountability. So I'm in a collaboration and I have a deadline. Then I get to create, which is beautiful, and that little bit of accountability helps me to sit down and do it. I've also had a friend where we will FaceTime each other, and she'll paint and I'll paint, and we're just hanging out, and there's like no pressure for anything. It's just creation. And that helps me as well, because I have found it a little bit harder to get to my art desk this year in terms of just sitting down for my own personal practice.
Right.
And so having those ways that I can, work with a friend, or and so last night I managed to sit down and do some sketching. And so I think that I work through little tricks for myself to get myself to create. And then those are the things I'd share with people, is just making it small and doable. So taking the pressure off. It doesn't have to be a big series, or it doesn't have to be a big piece that you're going to hang on your wall, or it doesn't have to even turn out and look like something that, like, it can just be an opportunity just to move some paint in the medium that I use, just to move some paint around. And just that act of moving paint around you find a sense of grounding and stillness with that. So I tell myself, it's just going to be 20 minutes, or just pull out the pencil and the paper. Like, if it seems too overwhelming to pull out the paints, just do some sketching. Write a 1-line poem or a 3-line poem, rather than anything big. So it's just this idea of small and doable. And I also find it helps if I set up my art desk so that it's got the next set of supplies ready for whatever I'm going to do. And then
I like that idea.
Because if I'm sitting on the couch and I'm tired and I'm watching Netflix, it's like, it's too hard to get my art supplies out. When really it's only going to take me maybe 5 minutes to get my art supplies out. But if I get them out and then they're there, and I don't have to even create at that time, but then it's just like an invitation. It's sitting there waiting. So I did that last night too. I did a bit of sketching, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to pull out the supplies for the next step with this, so that it's ready for tonight if I feel so inspired. So
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to adopt that.
Yeah.
Right now, my desk is a bit messy, and it's supposed to be reminding me to do some things, and it's not working. So I think what I need to do is have a nice desk like you, with all that nice stuff and nice and neat, and the little stuff, and do it. But I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. And I see how effective that can be. But a lot of it is still self-discipline, and kind of moving past the inertia to get into it.
And I think, like you mentioned, being gentle on ourselves, because we are experiencing some grief and uncertainty, and some people have lost their jobs, and so this expectation that there's like, oh, we're gonna write books, and we're gonna create paintings, and we're gonna learn a new skill, or like those things can be helpful to help us through, but we all process differently. And some people are able to sitting and creating is what's helping them get through. And then for some, it's hard to actually sit and do that. So we just have to be kind to ourselves.
Yes, we do. Thank you for that reminder. Kaniki, how are you moving forward? I mean, I've seen these open mics you're doing online, and you every now and then you drop a poem to kind of keep us going, like, oh, she's even still writing, and she's smiling through all this. How are you? And you're as poet laureate, where you have a public face for poetry and representing your city, and that definitely has to been challenging, because you visit schools, you visit a lot of different groups and your workshops, and then your own practice. How are you doing?
Well, much like when we were having our technical difficulties when we got ready to start this recording today, we were going to do it live, and then now you're watching it on a replay. You improvise, and
That's right.
You use whatever it is that you have, right? Much like cooking. You said, well, I was gonna make stir fry with rice, but I only have noodles, so I use noodles instead of, right? As poet laureate, if I would have said, well, we can't go any places outside, all of these events that I had planned, if I would have stopped, I would have lost a year of my tenure. I have 3 years. I'm not about to lose. It took me 3 times to get to the 3rd time is a charm to be poet laureate. And it's not lost on me that, during these times, I am the first Black poet laureate of Alexandria, Virginia. So I just moved everything that I had, whatever it was that I could do online. I moved it online. I bought me a Zoom account and I said, we're going to keep it moving. And I have, enjoyed the fact that I am able to travel and not have to go anywhere. So I can move from event to event easily because I'm still in my house. So I can be in Canada, I can be in Florida, I can be in DC, and right from my home, 2 o'clock, then I have a 4 o'clock show. So I have definitely enjoyed doing that. And just being positive about what it is that I have. So working with what I have and appreciating the time, because if it had been not this time, well, before we had Zoom, before we had FaceTime and Duo, and what would we have done? Like, how would we have communicated with our families and friends, not just art, but how do we, because I can see my mother, on the video, because I can see my brothers, I looked at that as a blessing that it happened in this time where we can be on here with more than one person at one time, right? So, and I have forged a lot of different relationships, just being online and meeting people that I would not have met. And I felt like there was a lot of go. And and I think that as far as I wrote a chapter in a book. I wanted to do a collaboration, so I was able to collab with last year with Laura DeFranco and her Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing. And I was actually reading, ironically, the volume 1 of Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing when she texted me and said, hey, I'm getting ready to do a volume 2. Would you like to be a part of volume 2? And I said, I don't know what I'm going to write about other than poetry. This is supposed to be a self-healing type of thing. So I looked around. She said, what do you think you want to do? What do you want to write about? So I looked at, I was sitting on the edge of my bed. I looked in the mirror at my reflection, and it was a basket of clothes there that needed to be folded, because you know how you wash, you don't never fold. You just, you know what I'm saying? You just wear the clothes out of the basket, right?
Right.
And I looked around and I said, I need to organize. So I'm going to write about how to declutter your space and your mind to make sacred spaces so you can create. That's what I'm going to write about. So, and I have been working on that. And I thought about, like, how you have this prayer rug and you, I use your yoga mat, right? You only use the yoga mat for yoga, right? And then you roll it back up, right? Okay. So that energy, when you unroll it, the energy of yoga, of prayer is in that one, it's putting you in the practice of it, right? So if you have a space set up where you write, where you paint, or whatever your art form is, that space is waiting for you. So I said, let me create a space where I can create. So that is how that is my recommendation. Create you a space where you can create. And I think that if that energy stays there, then you'll always be able to create there. So that's my advice. And that's what I mean. I can't stop. So yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, I think, and Mina, I would never have known that it hadn't been easy for you, because I mean, you just been, the images of the women that you work with, and of course, Melanie, you're always like boom, 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 all these different paintings, and Kaniki, the work that you're doing, you're keeping it going. I think the one thing I will acknowledge from hearing from everyone, there's several things. One, it's unfortunate we're dealing with this, but we also are blessed. There are some blessings that have come of it. We have the technology, even with the situation that we find ourselves in right now, not being able to broadcast this live, we can tape it. There's no, you can get, crazy and upset about things, but there's always another way. And the way that things are set up now, it just takes a little common sense to just figure out how you want to do it, and you can still get it to the masses. So, looking at things from a different perspective, kind of like the hangman card, like, okay, well, maybe I need to think about this, The other thing I'm hearing is set yourself up to be ready. Melanie and Kaniki both mentioned that, set up, even if you're not feeling it that day, it's still ready, because you're going to eventually see it and be like, I guess I need to do something. So, create an atmosphere, create an environment where it is dedicated for you to create, and that it's easy for you to do it, instead of like, well, like my desk right now, it's a mess and I don't feel like dealing with it, even though I still do it anyway. But make it easy for yourself, create that space, and make it sacred. I think Kaniki mentioned, because I see art making as a way of self-healing as well. A lot of people don't look at it that way unless you're from an art therapy point of view, but it is a way of self-care, and look at it from that perspective. And I think the third and most important thing is grace. If you're not feeling it, don't get upset, don't beat yourself up, and it's hard in a social media environment where you're seeing people that at least appear to be extremely productive, but we don't really know what their situation is either. That could be old work that they're pushing and making like it's, whatever. So, but give yourself grace and patience. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and your secrets and tips. My last thing is, I just thought I'd give you all an opportunity to share, what you have coming up in the next few months. If there's anything people that are viewing that they may want to take advantage of. And I think if we can give everybody till April 15th to get to you, unless you have any other, maybe depending on the dates of your events, of course, if there's some specials or things that you want to share. I believe in giving back. As a coach, I also don't have a problem sharing my platform with other creative women and saying, these are people that I feel comfortable with, I've worked with, or have, benefited in some way. I just don't put anybody on my channels and stuff. I really carefully think through who I'm dealing with and how they show up in the world. So I will say to those that are watching and listening, these are women that are very dedicated, very serious about their work, and extremely talented, and care about, their creativity from so many different levels. And so I do recommend them. So I'll start with Melanie on that.
Mm-hmm. So I have a free mixed media portrait lesson for folks. So I love introducing people to portraits if they're new to it. And this one, I'd say it'd be an easier access portrait to do, because it's the face is facing forward and the eyes are closed. So it makes it easier when the eyes are closed. So if people are interested in signing up for my newsletter, I have a number of free art lessons, and that being the first one. And then in my which is on my website, melanierivers.ca. And then my Facebook group, I hold some live sessions. So I started them during the first lockdown, the pandemic, called Ground with Paint. And I was doing them weekly, but I'm not able to do them weekly anymore, but I still am doing them on a regular basis. So in my Melanie Rivers Art Community Facebook group, people are welcome to join there, and it's an amazing, supportive community around creating. And I've got an exciting announcement coming tomorrow, so folks follow me on Instagram or social media. You'll get an opportunity for a brief. Yeah,
sounds exciting. And by the way, where this video will live in several different places, links and contact information will be provided if something suits your fancy. So we definitely want to do that. And we'll also be posting, if there's flyers or anything, we'll do that as well. How about you, Kaniki?
Oh, honey.
I know you always got something going on.
I have so many things. I have, a buffet of different things going on. So let me start by saying I mentioned The Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing Volume 2. I do have a chapter in there about decluttering. If you buy the book, it's available on my website, kanikij.com. In the book, there's a downloadable for free, if you buy the book, about possessing your writing process. So if you are a writer and you're trying to figure that out, cool, you can buy the book and get that. Or if you are a writer, if you were seeking a job, I do have 8 years of HR experience, human resources as well. So if you're looking to find out why you're putting out all your resumes and nobody's calling you, I know why, and I can tell you. I do one-on-one consulting for that, for publishing, for marketing. I do have a marketing degree too. So I have an array of backgrounds that I can help you on one-on-one. If you're shy, I'll give you a $25 discount if you email me. That information that I offer is also on my website under consulting on my website on kanikij.com. So if you want to do that, as far as events, that's why I said I have like an array of things, I'm offering a free workshop called Prep to Publishing at the end of April on the 24th. If you are interested in publishing, if you're local, I have an in-person event. So we're coming outside, social distancing with your mask. In Shirlington, we're doing an event for busboys and poets called Poetry on the Patio. So that's going to be on the 17th of April at 5 o'clock. So if you're interested in that, and it's free as well. And anything else, I'm going to update my website and make sure that y'all have all the information. Otherwise, you could just email me and say, what's happening. And I also host Busboys and Poets right now on Instagram because of the pandemic. So I still do First Mondays, since Sharon mentioned that that's where we connected. If you're on Instagram, if you follow Busboys and Poets, then I'm there every first Monday at 8 o'clock. It's an open mic. I can have features. It's always amazing. So if you want to join, and let me say, I don't know how fast this replay is going to be, but I collaborated with some young ladies. It's 4 of us. We do a woman-led artistic experience, like we like to call it. It's called Keep the Mic On. And I, under the umbrella of that, I do Poets and Platforms. So I'll be doing that tonight, and it's also free. So we'll keep the mic on everywhere. So we have different platforms. We're keeping the mic on during this pandemic. So if you want to join that, keepthemicon.com, keep the mic on everywhere.
Awesome sauce. And I may do the thing on April 17th. I got to see how that goes. And I might bless the mic. You don't know.
Hey, that's what I need. I need it because I don't want it to be the Kaniki show ever.
I know, and I haven't done it in a while, so it might be good to do it.
Neither have I.
No, okay.
Not live.
No, so maybe we both need to do,
Exactly.
kind of get back, ease our way back in. Mina, what do you have going on?
So I'm kind of in between things right now, but I do on my new website, 10th House Creative, and that's spelled out TENTHHOUSE, creative.com. I have a free Create Your Magical Brand PDF for people that sign up for my newsletter. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you also get some other branding tips on how to find your voice and starting to create visuals and your values and all of those fun things. And then I plan to share work and tips and tricks as I progress with this new journey through 10th House Creative. And you can also find me on Instagram under 10th House Creative. And then for Mina Habibi Portrait Artist, if anybody wants to follow me there, what you get there is lots of amazing women business owners. Every once in a while, you get a family phone in or like a cute couple. And every blue moon, although there's a lot of blue moons really, so I'm not even going to say that.
Yes,
Every once in a great while, a dude pops up in there. I just don't. I don't work with a lot of men in general because I think they're not the ones that necessarily need my services. And so what you find on my Instagram, Mina Habibi Portrait Artist, is a lot of amazing women, yoga teachers, creativity coaches, you name it, and the amazing things they're doing that you can follow them and link to them. So
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want to say that I am so excited and happy to have the opportunity to interview each of you, and everybody's comments have really come into a nice kind of beautiful thread that really connects all of us again as women, as creative women. We're doing our thing. We're moving past the barriers of life right now, and you're still on point and on mission working with women despite the challenges that we're dealing with. And I think I know I probably sound like a broken record now, but I think it's beautiful that you all are still doing that and you're dedicated to that. You all have been at least two I've gotten to know very well, and I'm getting to know my friend in Canada much more and learned a lot about her through this, and definitely will continue to be a fan of her work. Again, we're sorry we weren't able to do this live, but with the magic of technology, we are able to share this. And I'm just going to say this. Thank you. I just want to say this, that if you have questions, if there's something that's said on the video or the podcast that you would like to follow up, I'm inviting the panelists to just sort of check in on my page, and also they'll be sharing it. Please feel free to just leave your comments, questions on all the platforms that this will be appearing, and we definitely will, I will make sure that if there's something that you want to follow up with any of the panelists, I'll make sure they get that your message and have them get in touch with you, because it's important. I'm doing this for women, and I know how important it is, and their work is very important, and there's so much we can learn from everyone that participated. So thank you, ladies, for your participation today. And if anybody wants information about Spark Your Creative Coaching, feel free to contact me. I can be found at sparkyourcreative.com. I'm on Spark Your Creative. I'm Spark Your Creative on Facebook and on Instagram, and Spark_Create on Twitter. I'm also on YouTube. And I'd be more than happy to work with you to find ways to unblock and get you moving and going through all the things that are maybe affecting your ability to show up as the creative being that we all are. God bless and take care. Thank you.